So can we even choose to believe in God where we're not even 100% sure that He exists? Pascal says, yes, we can do this as long as 5 criteria are met. 5 criteria. These criteria are what make up Pascal's doctrine. Criteria number 1 is that we are under a forced option here. It's not like you can just choose not to make a choice either way. No, the option is forced. You either have to believe in God or not, and there is no third alternative. The second criterion is that this is a momentous option. A lot is riding on this decision, and whichever you choose, that choice is forever. There is no going back here. If you make a mistake, it is forever. It cannot be corrected. Criterion number 3 is that the evidence is not decisive. The truth seems kind of up in the air. You're not sure either way. The evidence could go this way or that way. You're not really sure which way it goes. The evidence is not decisive. So more or less, the options are balanced. It doesn't have to be, perfectly 50-50 kind of balance, but more or less, the evidence just doesn't seem to lend credibility to either option. So the evidence is just not decisive in this case. Number 4 is that there is an extreme disproportion in cost benefits. An extreme disproportion in cost benefits. This just means that one option is infinitely superior to the other on practical grounds. In this case, there's a tremendous amount to gain and very little to lose by believing in God. Whereas if you don't believe in God, it's just the opposite. There's a tremendous amount to lose and nothing to gain. That is our extreme disproportion in cost benefits. Finally, number 5, it's Pascal's notion that choosing to do certain actions will indirectly cause real belief. That's important that you understand that. Choosing to do certain actions will indirectly cause real belief. In other words, acting as if I believe will eventually bring it about that I actually really do believe. So choosing to do certain actions that are within your power, if you choose to do those things, that will eventually bring it about that you find yourself actually believing in God. Actions like what? Well, doing things like praying, building virtue and getting rid of bad habits, taking the sacraments if you're a Catholic like Pascal, going to church, hanging out with believers, talking with apologists, and then on God's part, if He exists, He will come closer to you and help you see that He is. So just like taking certain actions like putting on your glasses helps you see reality better, in the same way Pascal argues, and correctly I think, that taking certain actions with sincerity, like praying, reading apologetics books, sincerely trying to rid your life of sin and things like this, these sorts of actions that are in your control will eventually bring it about that you do in fact believe in God, even if you don't start out that way. So we can see here that Pascal really is recommending a 2-step process. And we'll call this the 2-step process of Pascal's Wager, which is really the movement from practical reason to true faith. Stage 1 is the practical stage. And this is the appeal to fear, but Pascal's just being biblical here, the principle being fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. You can think of this as a Kickstarter stage, the stage of practical reason where considerations of self-interest predominate. This idea of looking out for your own hide. Practical reason gets you started and self-interest moves you to wager on God. Now this stage itself is reasonable in the practical sense, since it is reasonable to do what is good for you. But when you do those things, those certain actions, just based out of self-interest, that will move you to stage 2. Stage 2 is the true faith stage, when you choose to believe, or at least take actions that have been known to lead to belief, then you will eventually find yourself actually believing that God exists. At this latter stage, considerations of self-interest no longer predominate, but can remain operative in cases of periodic doubt. So the process here is a movement. For certain unbelievers, you start with the practical stage. You start with appeals to self-interest. What's in your best interest? What's good for you? This is the stage of practical reason. You're looking out for your own hide. That should motivate you to take certain actions. And those actions will eventually bring about stage 2, which is the stage of true faith. At this stage, you really do find yourself, in fact, believing in God, and therefore those concerns of self-interest and looking out for your own hide, these things are no longer primary anymore because you do, in fact, believe in God, and now you have higher motives.
Here is a chance. Here's a lottery ticket that might be worth $1 million, and it might be worth nothing. And there's a 50-50 chance that it's worth $1 million. Will you expend a little time and passion and effort to examine it? If not, what's wrong with you? Yes, it's a cheap shot. God stoops to screaming and shouting at retarded little infants who run into the street because he loves us. So Pascal, like God, stoops to Congress, stoops to a very selfish motive, a fire insurance policy. There may be a hell, but here's a free policy. Won't you want to buy it? It's not shallow. It is lowbrow. It is humble. It is simple. It is based on selfish natural motives. It's not based on high motives, but it'll lead to higher ones.